Hello, my name is Natalie, and I'm a 38-year-old woman. The past few months have tested me in ways I never imagined. I've had to relearn what it means to stand on my own 2 feet, to reconstruct my identity, and to navigate a life that was abruptly shattered. Much of the hardship I faced traces back to one person, my husband, Willie, or rather, my ex-husband. But in the depths of my despair, someone unexpected stepped in and saved me, though not in the way I had anticipated. Before I get into the painful details, let me tell you about the key people in my life, the ones who have shaped my journey for better or worse. First, there's my younger sister, Lori. She's 5 years my junior and has always been effortlessly beautiful, the kind of woman who could turn heads without trying. As kids, we were polar opposites. While I buried myself in books and thrived academically, Lori was the popular one, always surrounded by friends, effortlessly charismatic. Our childhood was filled with tension, often stemming from her teasing and an unspoken rivalry. I could never quite tell whether she resented me or just enjoyed making me squirm. Our mother, ever the peacemaker, tried to mend our fractured bond, but we remained distant. When I left for college, the gap between us widened even further. For years, our conversations were limited to polite pleasantries during family gatherings, void of any real connection. It wasn't until Lori was in her late teens that we found a semblance of common ground. Though we never became particularly close, I learned to accept our relationship for what it was, functional, but never deeply intimate. Then there was Willie, the man I once thought was my soulmate. We met at work, a connection that blossomed into love. He was charming, ambitious, and made me feel seen in a way no one else had before. After 4 years of dating, we took the leap and got married. Together, we bought our first home, a milestone I was particularly proud of. Since I was the higher earner at the time, the mortgage and house deed were in my name, a decision that seemed insignificant then but would later hold far more weight than I realized. A few years into our marriage, Willie broached a topic I knew was inevitable: starting a family. "Honey, I've been thinking," he said one evening, his voice gentle but purposeful. "We've been together for a while now, and maybe it's time we thought about having a family of our own." I inhaled deeply, steeling myself for the conversation I had been dreading. "Willie, you know my reservations," I replied cautiously. He nodded, undeterred. "I understand, but just think about it. We're stable, we have a home, and honestly, I can't help but imagine little versions of us running around." I sighed, my heart torn between logic and love. Having kids is a huge responsibility, Willie. It's not just a decision you make on a whim. He smiled reassuringly. "And who's more hardworking and responsible than us?" Despite my hesitations, I eventually gave in to his persistence. We welcomed our first child, a son, followed by a daughter 4 years later. At first, Willie was the supportive partner I had always known, but that facade quickly crumbled. As his career advanced, mine took a back seat. He received a major promotion and suddenly began earning more than me, an achievement that altered the dynamics of our marriage in subtle but significant ways. With each passing day, I found myself shouldering more of the household responsibilities alone. Eventually, Willie suggested I quit my job to focus on raising our children. "It'll be better this way," he had said, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You won't have to stress about work, and the kids will have you full-time." I hesitated. The idea of leaving behind a career I had worked so hard for unsettled me, but the pressure mounted, and soon, I relented. I became a full-time mother, dedicating myself entirely to our children and home. To maintain a sense of normalcy, I started hosting dinner parties. These gatherings became my lifeline, moments where I could connect with adults and escape the monotonous routine of childcare. My mother, Lori, and my mother-in-law, Amanda, were regular attendees, filling our home with lively conversation and fleeting moments of joy. For a while, I convinced myself that I had adjusted, that this was the life I was meant to lead. But then, everything came crashing down. One afternoon, while tidying our bedroom, I stumbled upon a pair of women's underwear. My pulse quickened as I picked them up, my mind racing. These weren't mine. The lace, the style, I would never wear something like this. A cold realization gripped me. Had Willie been unfaithful? I sat on the edge of the bed, the fabric still clutched in my trembling hands. My body felt heavy, my chest tight with a suffocating blend of anger and heartbreak. Determined to uncover the truth, I took a picture of the underwear and sent it to Willie with a single question: "Care to explain?" Then, my desperation took over. I grabbed his laptop, my hands moving on their own as I logged into his social media accounts. At first, nothing seemed out of place, no strange names, no blatant signs of infidelity. But then, I noticed something odd. Lori's name appeared frequently in his chats. At first, I dismissed it. She was my sister, why would I find it strange that they talked? But something nagged at me, an intuition I couldn't ignore. With a deep breath, I clicked on their conversation. What I found shattered me. Their messages were intimate, photos, affectionate videos, inside jokes that I had no part in. I scrolled further, my breath hitching as I read their plans for Willie to leave me. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Lori, my own sister. I felt sick. The room spun as I reached for my phone, my fingers shaking as I dialed Lori's number. She answered casually, as if nothing had happened. Hey, what's up? I nearly choked on my words. Don't, hey, what's up, me, Lori, what the hell is wrong with you? There was a pause. Then, in an infuriatingly calm tone, she said, I don't know what you mean. Oh, you don't? My voice cracked. Well, I found a pair of your panties in my bedroom. Have you been sleeping with Willie? Silence. Then, with chilling nonchalance, she said, yeah, for a while now. My world collapsed. Why? My voice was barely a whisper. You're my sister, Lori, you were supposed to have my back. Her response was a slap to the face. I was helping you out, she said, keeping Willie busy so you could focus on the kids. I nearly dropped the phone. Are you serious? Do you even hear yourself? He deserves to be happy, she said, as if that justified everything, and if I'm the one who makes him happy, then so be it. A hollow laugh escaped me. You're disgusting. I hung up. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, tears slipping down my face. My sister had betrayed me, my husband had abandoned me, I had given up everything for this life, only to be cast aside like I was nothing. The next morning, Willie was gone, his clothes, his belongings, everything had vanished overnight. I was alone. But I refused to break. For my children, and for myself, I had to find a way forward, and somehow, I would. Even if I had to rebuild from the ground up. I agreed, feeling an unexpected wave of relief wash over me at having my mother's support amidst the chaos that had unraveled my life. Breaking the news to her had not been as difficult as I had anticipated. Perhaps, deep down, she had already sensed the storm before it arrived. Once I finally let go of the burden of explaining everything, exhaustion overtook me. While I slept, my mother took care of my youngest, giving me a much-needed reprieve from the emotional and physical toll the situation had taken on me. When I woke, a piercing cry echoed through the house, my baby's distressed wail intertwined with my mother's raised voice. My heart pounded as I rushed toward the commotion. Standing in the doorway, I found my mother gripping the phone tightly, her expression a blend of fury and disbelief. She hadn't noticed me at first, too engrossed in whatever heated exchange she was having. Finally, she hung up abruptly, her face still contorted with anger. When she turned and saw me standing there, a flicker of surprise crossed her face. I'm sorry about the noise, she said, her voice softer now, but she didn't elaborate further. I didn't need her to explain. I knew exactly who she had been talking to. There was no doubt in my mind that she had been giving Lori a piece of her mind. The betrayal had shaken my mother to her core, and she was not one to let such things go easily. Over the next few days, my mother remained by my side, offering both practical support and a much-needed emotional anchor. It was far easier to manage with her help rather than the alternative, a potential influx of 3 additional people disrupting our fragile sense of stability. Lori, persistent and unrelenting, attempted to reach out to our mother multiple times, but Mom, resolute in her stance, asked me to block Lori on her behalf. For the first time in this nightmare, I felt a comforting sense of solidarity. It meant the world to have someone unequivocally on my side, someone who understood the weight of the betrayal and refused to stand idly by. As I tried to piece together the remnants of my life, an unexpected wave of news reached me through mutual friends. Willie and Lori had wasted no time, they had married in a rushed, almost desperate ceremony. The revelation struck me like a physical blow. Only a day had passed since Willie had abandoned us, and yet, they had already taken such a monumental step forward together. The speed at which they moved was both humiliating and infuriating. Mutual friends, caught in the crossfire of the unfolding drama, expressed their disgust at the sheer audacity of the betrayal. Their reactions were a balm to my wounded pride, their support unwavering. One by one, they severed ties with both Willie and Lori, making it clear that they stood firmly by my side. While the betrayal itself cut deep, the overwhelming show of loyalty from those who truly mattered provided me with unexpected solace. Despite knowing the truth of who Willie and Lori were, it was still difficult to fully grasp how swiftly they had moved on. I wondered if I should have expected anything different. Perhaps, deep down, I had always known what they were capable of. When I relayed the news to my mother, I saw something rare in her expression: pure, unfiltered rage. My mother, the woman who had always been the epitome of composure, could not contain her fury at the depth of my sister's treachery. Seeing her so visibly upset only reinforced how grievous the situation was. Yet, amidst the anger, her unwavering support remained my greatest source of comfort. She did more than just offer emotional reassurance. Determined to see me regain my independence, she helped me line up job interviews, ensuring that I could rebuild my financial stability now that Willie was no longer around to hinder my progress. It wasn't easy managing the kids and my emotions all at once, but somehow, we managed. The hardest part was answering their innocent questions about their father. Each time they asked, my heart twisted painfully, but despite everything, I knew we had to keep going. We had no other choice. A week after Willie's departure, a letter arrived for me. I stared at the envelope for a long time, my emotions warring within me. After everything he had done, what could he possibly have to say? My first instinct was to rip it open, demand answers, force him to acknowledge the wreckage he had left behind. But the longer I held it, the more my anger simmered to the surface. A week, that's how long it had taken him to reach out. A full 7 days of silence before he finally decided to acknowledge what he had done. And now, with this envelope, he expected me to listen? No, that was too little, too late. Without hesitation, I took a match and burned the letter, watching as the flames devoured whatever words he had written. It was a symbolic act, a definitive closing of that chapter in my life. And yet, in the quiet moments that followed, doubt crept in. A part of me regretted not reading it, if only to know what excuses he had concocted. But what could he possibly have said that would make any of this better? Nothing would change how I felt. Nothing would undo the pain he had inflicted. I had made my choice, and I would have to live with it. To shake off the weight of the past few days, my mother and I decided to take the kids to the fair the following afternoon. For the first time in what felt like forever, laughter filled the air. We let ourselves enjoy the moment, savoring the small joys of cotton candy, carnival games, and the excited squeals of my children. That evening, as we relaxed with a bottle of wine, I casually mentioned the letter. When I told her I had burned it without reading it, my mother looked at me with a mixture of shock and concern. "Natalie, what if it was something important, like divorce papers?" she asked, her brow furrowed. I shook my head. It didn't look official, just a regular envelope. "I'm sure it wasn't that." She sighed, "But let it go. I just want to make sure you're okay." "I'm getting there," I admitted. "It's tough, especially when the kids keep asking about their dad. But today was a good day." She reached for my hand and squeezed it. "And it will keep getting better. I want you to know something, Natalie. I'm cutting Lori out of my life for good. Everything I have will go to you and the kids." I stared at her, stunned. "Mom, are you sure? Lori is still your daughter." "Not anymore," she said, her voice steely. She made her choice. She knew what she was doing, and she didn't care. I didn't argue. I understood the depth of my mother's anger, but I also recognized the pain it must have caused her to reach that decision. 5 days later, an unexpected knock on the door shattered the fragile normalcy I had begun to establish. When I opened it, I was met with 2 men in black suits, lawyers. They handed me an envelope and a check. A check for $920,000. The note that accompanied it began with 4 haunting words: "Thank you for saving me." Amanda, my mother-in-law, had passed away, and in her final days, she had rewritten her will, leaving everything to me and my children. Tears blurred my vision as I absorbed the enormity of her gift. When Willie called, furious, I finally had my answer ready: "You left us. Don't ever contact me again." With financial security, I focused on the future. Though the pain lingered, I knew better days were coming.